And welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Glad to have you here. This is Beaufort County's House of Cards. Coming to you live. It's Thursday the 14th of July. And it is heavily raining outside here in Beaufort County, about 80 degrees, 7 o'clock. We're going to go all the way to 8:30. Thank you again for joining us. We got a big show tonight. A lot of stuff we're talking about, and have another special guest coming on here in a few moments. I want to remind everybody we are broadcasting live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, and now we are on Patreon. So help us out with the show. You can go to Cash App. You see the there across the ticker on the screen. There's our Cash App. It's $MCOVERT 1581. You can help us out with the show there. Or you can go to patreon.com/Beaufort House of Cards. That's patreon.com/Beaufort House of Cards. Glad to have everybody here. We've had power outages and internet outages all over the place, and the broadcasting angels are watching over us so we can get this show in tonight. A lot of stuff to talk about. So before we get going on tonight's show, let's talk about the news. What's going on around here today? Well, the big thing all across South Carolina, across the Low Country, and this is getting worldwide coverage, is the Murdaugh trials, the Murdaugh mystery. Today in Colleton County, the grand jury formally indicted Alec Murdaugh on charges. And let me bring these up here. I've got a copy of the indictment. There you should see that on your screen. And as I always say, don't forget to chime in, send me a message if you have a question or whatever. We'll read it out here, put it on the screen. Anyway, here is a copy of the first indictment. There was 4 indictments. The first one, you see it in front of you. It says that on or about June 7th, 2021, the defendant, Alec Murdaugh, did kill, yada, 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 the victim, Maggie Murdaugh, with a rifle. He also was indicted, as you see the cover of the indictment there. He was indicted for the murder of his son, Paul Murdaugh, with a shotgun. The other 2 indictments that were passed down today was the possession of a firearm in the commission or during the commission of a violent crime, i.e., when Alec Murdaugh murdered his wife, Maggie, he possessed a rifle in the act of murder. And the 4th indictment from the grand jury is that he did the same thing, possessed a weapon, a firearm, during the commission of a violent crime where he possessed the shotgun when he murdered Paul Murdaugh. Those are the indictments that were levied today. Quick to wit was the Attorney General, Alan Wilson, who pretty much his response was thanking the community, the legal community, all the legal people, all the community members, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and getting this out there. Also, Murdaugh's attorneys, Jim Griffin and Senator Dick Harpootlian, came out with their own response to say that he didn't do anything. He didn't do anything at all. So find that rather interesting. Not surprising. I mean, they're they're his lawyers, but they did say that he's done nothing wrong. Now he's already been indicted on, gosh, I don't know, what is it, 83 or something like that, that he allegedly really was the mastermind, the criminal mastermind of all these financial crimes. I was talking to my wife about it earlier. I want to say it's somewhere around $10 million or something like that, that he's embezzled or stole or whatever. If you can imagine it, he's been accused of it, and he's been sitting in jail, where it appears that's where he needs to be. That's according to the judge, and they've denied bond. One of the comments was that, well, he's only in a danger to himself. He's, not going to hurt anybody. Well, I don't know. I mean, part of the court's process is to keep you from hurting yourself. He allegedly tried to have a suicide for hire sort of thing. So, I mean, it just, the convolution grows. What's the interesting thing? And some people keep saying, well, why did he take so long for this to develop? Why did it take so long for them to press charges? Well, the financial crimes seem to be, from someone who doesn't know anything about this, it seems to be that is the easiest way to get him in jail and to keep him in jail. He's had his law practice, or his law license. He's been disbarred. They've done everything, really, it looks like, by the book, to keep him out of the public while he's in jail behind bars. He continues to perpetrate crimes, so it is alleged, and it seems, through these jailhouse tapes of the phone calls. And I have to give a shout out to Mandy Matney, Liz Farrell, and Will Folks at Fitz News, who's done an incredible job uh, putting all this together. An incredible job. And if you haven't listened to the Murdaugh Mysteries podcast of Mandy's, on any podcast studio available, it's like one of the top ones, if not the top one, in the Apple podcast. You got to check it out. It's really good. Anyway, they did a great job putting all that together. So he's behind bars. They've methodically laid this out. He's not going anywhere. Cross every T, dot every I. And when that happens, indict him on murder. Obviously, we see that's where it is now. So there you go. Murdaugh has been indicted for double murder and two other possession crimes. Big Beaufort County news reported to you all on a show that we taped during the week. And that's one of the things we're going to keep doing live every Thursday night from 7 o'clock to 8:30. But during the week, we'll do specific shows here and there. They'll be pre-recorded and pushed out there on all the outlets that we show ourselves in. So stay tuned for that. Go to our Facebook page, go to our YouTube page, especially YouTube. Click subscribe so you're on the list. Ring the little bell. Click on the bell. That way you'll get notifications of any time something is coming up, or we have an announcement or whatever. That way you get all the news. Now you can go to Patreon. That's patreon.com/Beaufort House of Cards. And there are memberships available. We're going to be able, you can take a look at it. There's only two of them. Now you don't have to do that to listen to the show, but there are extra things you get if you become a member. It's very inexpensive. There's things from private interviews to you get first tickets to things. We're going to go out into the public possibly and do some live shows that you'll get tickets to as part of this. Just go to patreon.com/Beaufort House of Cards, and you can learn more about that. So this past week we did a show. Some of the things we talked about was that Beaufort County Council, if you go back and take a look at the show, you remember we were talking about they were quick to put on the docket buying Melrose Landing over on Defusky Island, as well as a parcel on Helmsman Way in Hilton Head. Now, both of those they're separate, but they're a package, because this is something that Stu Rodman has been dying to do. And now that he's only got a few months left and the countdown is on, praise God, and he'll be gone from county council. This is something that he is pushing like like he's never pushed before, and that's to get the embarkation point to Defusky back on Hilton Head, back previous to Matthew, if you will. And then he wants the county to buy Melrose Landing, so there's a dedicated space to go back and forth. This is his plan. Now, the problem with this thing, this plan that he has that they've pushed, and so far it's gotten a little bit of pushback, but it's been able to move forward as expected. That's expected with the cast of characters that's there now. Not going to be there in come January, but we're dealing in the now, not the then. Right now, the embarkation point is on Buckingham Landing, right in Bluffton. There's a problem with that being there. It has to be moved. Everybody knows that. And the process was, even when I was on county council, we began the process of putting the embarkation point on Pinckney Island. That's the island between Hilton Head and the mainland. Part of the 278 bridge deal has to do with Pinckney Island. And money has been spent. A lot of money has been spent in working on that. All of a sudden, out of left field comes Stu Rodman, and he wants to put it on Hilton Head, not on Pinckney Island. And the excuses that they gave and the reasons not to go to Pinckney Island are false. What he said was not true. The Pinckney Island property already has a boat ramp. It already has a dock. It has space for overnight parking, which is necessary for the folks that live on Defusky Island. It's already there. The infrastructure is not complete either place, but it's begun on Pinckney Island. Be that as it may, they had it went through another vote and it's passed. They're moving forward. Keep your eyes on that and your ears on that. Get in touch with your county council representative, your state representative, and tell them that this is behind the doors. And this was done at an executive session, brought out for an immediate vote out of an executive session on the 27th of June, mind you. And it started being pushed through. Hats off to council members Hervishon, Glover, Cunningham, and Flewelling for having the fortitude to stand up and say, no, this is not a good deal. No, this is not a wise expense of taxpayer money. And everything they do is taxpayer money. Don't forget that. So more to come with that. Also, just I found this out today. I don't know when this came about, but I found out about it today. I think this is pretty new in the moving, if you will. Is the green space. There's a green space tax that's forthcoming. Now, let me give a premise with that. County Council had been talking about adding a transportation tax. They call it a penny tax. It's a 1% tax that would go on top of sales tax. They wanted to add that onto the ballot this November for people to vote on for transportation issues. And there's a list of those issues out there that, if you remember, I had chewed away overnight. Something like $100 and some odd million. Anyway, transportation tax did meet a wall. It met a wall because this is on a timeline. You have to have these things gone through public hearings quick enough to be able to get onto the ballot. And that's not just to pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, print this. There is a process. So there's a time limit. Well, at the last vote, there was a 5-5 tie. I don't know who wasn't there, but there was a 5-5 tie that deadlocked it. So the transportation tax has been null. It's been killed. Will not be on the ballot come November. However, what is very possible to be on the ballot is something called a green space tax. This green space tax, which was, I'm not sure if the one in the State House is authored by Senator Davis. I know he is in support of it. This would, and his plan was a 0.5 cent. County Council is asking for a full percent. This would be on sales tax. And what this would do is to fund the purchase of lands to hold off. This is the intent to hold off development. It's a growth preventer, if you will. Now, don't forget we have rural and critical lands. I haven't heard anybody say, why is rural and critical not doing this? Why are you asking for another penny or percent from the taxpayers to do this when rural and critical lands has that's what they do. They have dollars to purchase rural and critical lands to not let development. You don't want a shopping mall on the edge of the Okatee River, sort of thing. So I'm not sure why that is the way it is right now. However, um, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I think the overwhelming majority of county council has supported this green space tax. It would raise the sales tax from 6% to 7%. If it passes, if it gets on the ballot and passes by the voters of Beaufort County. So, thank goodness they both aren't on there, or you would see up to 8% sales tax. Now, sales taxes, this is how they're selling it. Sales taxes in Beaufort County, the lion's share of sales taxes come from Hilton Head Island, always has been, and for the foreseeable future, always will be. They're estimated at $40 million a year in sales taxes comes from Hilton Head. That would put the county at about, um, gosh, I don't know, 4 times that in totality. But the overwhelming 60%, somewhere in there, comes from 60 to 70% comes from Hilton Head Island. Now, 30 to 40% of that comes from tourists, i.e., the tourists carry the lion's share of the sales taxes. So that is something that you have to understand. Now, does that help you when you go to the store to buy a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread that you're already paying sometimes double for what you did last year? No, that won't make you feel any better. To say, well, the tourists are having to pay the lion's share of it. Um, Good and bad on both sides, but at least now you know that um, that's the reason behind it, and you have to decide for yourself: is it worth um, that extra percent on sales tax? No, that doesn't affect cars. That doesn't affect houses. Certain foods. It's if you get charged sales tax now, you would get an extra percent charged then. So county council is trying to push that. Once they get it on the approved, and, assuming that it does, on the ballot by law, county council has to stay out of it. They cannot promote pro or for or against any referendum question. Interestingly enough, county council has been in the business of hiring PR firms to educate the citizens on said tax. Now, take that for what it's worth. I read it because I was part of it. I understand it. They're educating you in a very slanted position. It's not a neutral. There's no neutrality about it. Uh, don't let that fuzzy the water. There is a defined goal there, but that's what's going on. So um, that here we have a question. Beaufort chalkboard. How about Beaufort chalkboard? Give them a big round of applause there. Yeah, my concern is where the money goes. They can't tell us exactly what this would be spent for. And the any referendum needs to have that. Now, I do know. Now, when I was on, let me back up a second. When I was on county council, we never had any referenda questions about green space or buying this, or buying that, with the exception of appropriating dollars for rural and critical lands. And I think I don't remember the year. They wanted $30 million, and I was one of the three that led the battle, and we brought it down. I think it was to $20 million. $20 million doesn't go very far in Beaufort County. But the point of that is that was for rural and critical projects. Another scandal laden group that someday we'll talk about. Maybe not them, but the process of purchasing land through rural and critical lands. But anyway, um, the while aside from that one, what we did have was referendum on transportation and Beaufort chalkboard. I can tell you that at least with transportation, and I believe the same thing applies to all or any referendum or referenda that is on the ballot. There has to be defined usage. In other words, and again, I can only speak for transportation. For those transportation sales taxes, you can only spend that money on what was said it was to be used for. And if you tell the folks, well, we're going to spend $5 million and we're going to put it in a street over here, it has to be spent for that. Can you spend less? Absolutely. Can you spend more? You can take from one pot to feed to another pot that existed on the referenda question. You can't take it from something that was over here already existing and spend it over here to a question. It doesn't work that way. Again, in transportation, sales tax, referendum question, they list, we're going to spend 200 million here, we're going to spend 10 million here, and so on and so forth. That's where it has to go. That's where it has to go. They have to, and it depends on folks in the community to keep them straight. Because if they say, well, we're going to spend, here's a good example, sidewalks. And I can only really relate to what we do here in Bluffton because that was the focus of my attention, really. There were several places that didn't want sidewalks, and the transportation committee had appropriated a certain amount of dollars for it. Old Miller Road is one that comes to mind. They didn't want it. They wanted nothing to do with any kind of sidewalk. Don't spend the money. So I requested the money go. I think it was to Burnt Church Road, another district, and that's fine. That's fine. What they couldn't have done was all of a sudden pull up one day and decide we're going to put a sidewalk down Old Miller Road, and that was never on the referendum. So I think, without beating that to death, I think you understand where I'm going with that. Anyway, that's what's going on around the news here locally. So always keep your eyes and ears out for that kind of stuff, because one of the things, actually, one of the biggest things that we do here, and the reason we came up with this show and this idea is, wow, that thunder. You're welcome, Beaufort Chalkboard. You're welcome. Is for far too long, far too many people in county, state, I'm not talking about national. You get your dose of that any ad nauseum, any place you want. But really, locally and statewide, far too often, there's far too many people taking advantage of the system, taking advantage of the dollars that you pay them. It's all public money. There's no, well, it's only the government's money. No, it's your money. It's my money. It's everybody. It's our money. They have to be watched because temptation of corruption is too easy and it's too quick to happen. And for years, I've been bringing this to the forefront about certain people in county council, about certain people in government, about certain nonprofit, so to speak, entities like chambers of commerce. I mean, the list goes on and on. I've been bringing that up, say, hey, whoa, we got questions here. Let's ask. The last 2 weeks, we talked about DSN and their ways that they've been exploiting their people, their consumers, the way they've been exploiting the real estate process and buying and selling land illegally. All that's kind of stuff that we talk about here. One of the things that's included in all of this is the behavior of county councils. Now, obviously, we're in Beaufort County, but close your eyes and insert your county on the line here, whatever that county is. In South Carolina, county council representatives, and this should be in every state. I hope it is, and maybe it is. I don't know. I can only worry about here for the moment. County council members are not to conduct business outside of county entities, i.e., county meetings, county emails, county what whatever the business is being transpired, it has to be on a county level and it has to be open to the public. There's only one thing they can close, and that is an executive session privilege for the reasons that are only like here to talk about contracts, to talk about employment, which is only one person, the county administrator, and legal issues, the bazillions of lawsuits that are going on in insert county here. So one of our guests for tonight, before I bring her on, her name is Mare Baracco, lives over in the northern part of the county. Interestingly enough, and she has when I talk about people you need to keep an eye on what's going on, even though, well, politics isn't my thing. Okay, that's fine. That's cool. Spending money is everybody's thing. We all should know that, you have to have you can't spend more than you take, and you can't take from people to rip them off just to buy more. And that's a very 30,000, 40,000 foot view. But Ms. Baracco has been doing that. And one of the articles that I had dug up and found was um, she had sent in a FOIA. And FOIA means Freedom of Information Act. This FOIA to the county was talking about emails from Beaufort County Council members in different, I believe it was in different settings. We'll let her talk about these emails, but the response when you file a FOIA, if you want an exercise in futility, everybody just file one just for something to see what happens. So when you file this, and there's a specific way to file these FOIA requests, the county gets back to you and tells you, okay, we believe it will cost this, whatever this is, and you have to put in a deposit. And I'm eliminating a lot of steps. That's basically what it is. You need a deposit. They do the work and they scan it or copy it or whatever, and they send it to you after you've paid the total. The amount of dollars is, and this is all in state law, the amount of those dollars, the estimate is based on, and I'm sure she'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I'm right, that the lowest paid worker that can make these copies in whatever department it's about. Okay. So if it's in, the XYZ department, and the lowest paid hourly worker that can do this makes $16 an hour, then it's $16 an hour to make these copies and do whatever redactions or whatever. It's not carte blanche for the county to say, well, we're going to charge you $72 an hour or $250 an hour because we think it's going to take, there's 50 pages and it's going to take 760 man hours. This is the kind of stuff that Beaufort County is infamous for. Ms. Baracco had received, let me see here. This was she had been getting estimates and bills from the county upwards of like $12,000. And these were FOIAs, Freedom of Information Act requests on emails, private emails of county council members conducting county business. That's a no-no. So, make a long story short, $12,000 in this one particular one, she was asked to pay to give her copies of emails. And the ironic thing about it is some of these FOIAs that I have seen other people, as well as hers, but other people get back from the county are full pages of black ink where they've redacted everything and still made you pay ridiculous amounts. So I don't remember what year it was. I think it was 17 or 18, or no, 18 or 19, somewhere in there. The newspaper, one of the reporters that's not here anymore, had been asking for and had FOIA'd certain information, and the county was doing this to them. These exorbitant amounts. They got to me, and I went to the county, and I said, "This is beyond ridiculous. This is stupid. You know, if we're going to have the argument, and you're going to get sued because you're treating citizens like Ms. Morocco and others with these exorbitant fees. But now, freedom of the press, you are making the press pay for a freedom of information. Well, that did cause the proverbial shitstorm or fire, because they quickly walked that back. Now, I don't know if that's being taken on anymore by the county. We'll see. But I do want to bring on screen now Marie. Let me unmute you. Hey, how are you?
I'm great. I'm really enjoying the show, actually.
Awesome. Let me change screens here, and I want to give you. I don't know how to do this. Well, I was going to try to give you the whole screen.
No,
I'm
I
sure
like
I'm
this
pushing the wrong button.
This is good. I like seeing you on talking to you.
So thank you for coming on. Thank you for watching the show. I tried. I know you were listening to it. I was just saying, and I know I butchered that up.
No, I was when you were talking about it, actually, because
yeah, tell them.
You're right that the county, or I should say governmental entities, not just the county, but although we're talking about the county tonight, but what happens is when you have documents that a government archives, you're supposed to have like an archivist. Oops, there's actually that thing right in front of my face, Mike. Can you like move that? Can you see it? All right, there you go. Thank you. So you're supposed to have them properly archived. So when a citizen or somebody does a freedom of information request, they can pull the appropriate documents. And if there's an attorney-client privilege or there's a contract that hasn't been concluded yet, they can properly say, well, we have to redact this or we can't release it or whatever. But what happens with the county is they go through documents after requests are made and go, uh-oh, can't have her see that, or we can't have them see that. So we're going to redact that, or we're going to charge them a fee for us reviewing each and every one of these emails so that we can determine if it's embarrassing and we don't want people to see it. So a lot of the emails that have been withheld are either highly conspiratorial and involve some very shady conduct, or it's just embarrassing to the county, but it's not really redacted under the what the statute provides for. And I have noticed, though, with some FOIAs that somebody sent me recently, that the county seems to have gotten a little bit more on board with noting when there's a real redaction. There's like a red line on it and all this other stuff, but they never used to do that. And after I filed a freedom of information lawsuit against the county, which is ongoing right now, they decided that none of these private emails that ping the government server, which we should see if they're using their private email to conduct government business and it's hitting the government server. Now it's up to the individual council people, the foxes in the proverbial hen house, to decide if they're going to release those or not. So they gave themselves a little out. And it's the very people that are responsible for using their private emails that made that policy. It shouldn't surprise you, Mike, since you were on council and got to see some of this, the shenanigans that have gone on. So anyway, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. You know, I having been on council, and there had been many times where we were asked, "Hey, do you have any personal emails about XYZ?" You know, it was full disclosure. I am no angel. I mean, there has been times where responded to somebody or on my personal one. Absolutely. I mean, that happens.
Right.
But would you agree that there is obviously a tendency for some of those foxes to do this not as a oops, but as that's SOP? Would you agree?
Oh yes, I do come bearing hardcore evidence for you tonight, for your audience. I don't do anything without having it backed up. In fact, you can't see all the boxes behind me, but I literally have thousands of documents and emails in my office that myself and my team have put together. I am very fortunate to have a very sharp and talented group of people that work with me that help us uncover all this to create more transparency and openness in our government. And that's the whole reason I filed the FOIA suit, was so we could see all these emails that they're working so hard to hide. And also, and just to kind of back it up a little bit, the reason that I even got involved in all this was we regretfully had to sue the county a few years ago for abusive process and conspiracy when they pursued us relentlessly, as I think you were on council at the time and may be aware of that. And that involved a lot of gathering their emails. And after we got something like 7,000 emails, the county finally had to cave and say, okay, we're done here. So we were successful in getting that suit settled. And I did send you a few of those emails. So you can kind of get a feel. I have a few of them right here.
Yeah, there's one I'd like to put up on the screen, and hopefully this works.
Okay.
Can you see that one? Nope, that's the wrong one. That is that's the Murdaugh one. I don't need that one. This is it right here, I think. There we go.
Oh, okay. Oh, that is actually is if you look at the date on this email, it's March 19th, 2018. This is actually, and again, to back up a little bit, one of the reasons that I had ended up filing the FOIA lawsuit was because my other case with the county had not yet settled. And I had gotten some emails from the county that said, that they were conducting intel on me, which was very stunning. And also the county minister, that was an email actually. It was entitled For Your Intel. And that was from Alice Howard. And that was sent to Van Willis in Port Royal. And I live in Port Royal. So very disturbing. And that was actually a forwarded email from when the previous county administrator, Gary Kubik, had apparently either gone to the newspaper or done his own research to look up any letters that I had ever written to the newspaper, and then went to the trouble of making copies of them and distributed them to everybody. You know, this is just something you don't imagine your government dollars being spent on. So obviously, a proven conspiracy and abusive process. Those made it a little easier. So I said, oh, well, if they're conducting an intelligence gathering operation on me, I think I'm going to have to see what's going on in their emails. And so that's how I ended up getting some of these emails unredacted. Unbelievable. So if everybody recalls, back in 2018, and I think, Mike, you were on council at the time, correct?
Yes, I was.
So there was a search for a new county administrator that was initiated at the time. Gary Kubik had retired, and Josh Gruber, some of you may know Josh Gruber, was the acting interim county administrator, and he was a personal favorite of some of our most intriguing council people. That would be Stu Rodman, Paul Somerville, the departed to North Carolina while traveling back to privately to work on council, Jerry Stewart, and you'll see they mentioned a couple of other people. And here we have an email, March 19th. This is when Josh Gruber was still the acting county administrator, had not yet taken the job in Hilton Head that he subsequently took in April, or accepted in April. And people were saying, hey, you know, we think this search is being manipulated by some people on council to promote Josh Gruber to the exclusion of any other candidate. And of course, as citizens, we were paying for a search, and we are expecting to see various candidates, and I'm sure council was expecting to do interviews and so forth, correct?
Correct. That time? Absolutely correct.
Here we have an email dated March 19th, 2018 from Stu Rodman to Paul Somerville, Jerry Stewart, and the usual suspects, and copied to Josh Gruber. And here Stu lays out his plan after having talked to Josh, as he says, I had a discussion with Josh and he would like an up or down vote. Well, isn't that nice? And then
Stu, this was, and Stu Rodman was chairman at the time, correct?
No, actually, Paul Somerville was.
Somerville, so okay.
Right. But I've seen a lot of these emails, and you'll see a lot of the Stu Paul show if you get Jerry helpfully bringing up the rear. So Stu says, privately, I had a discussion with Josh, and he would like an up or down vote. Since he has the most at stake, he needs to set the strategy or at a minimum concur. I am concerned that surprising the other 6, meaning on council, including you, Mike, anticipated vote or an orchestrated public support may harden their position. And then he goes on to lay out this entire plan that they cooked up behind the scenes to put their favorite candidate in place while we were having, the citizens had paid for a search, had a search company that was going out. And you have to understand that, candidates are assuming they're going to have an opportunity to apply for a job that they're being told is open.
That's right.
So they're traveling here and they're spending money and they're doing things. And in the meantime, we have this whole conspiratorial, business going on. And they're trying to shore up votes and determine how they're going to introduce their little motions. And they're just, really just the most despicable behavior. And I'm looking at the to and from, and it looks like those are likely their private emails, because otherwise I would say, BC Gov.
BC County or however the servers use it. Yes, that's right. You are right.
Right. So subsequently, when that ploy didn't work and they ended up suspending the first search because there was an outcry that people on council were saying, we think the search is being, manipulated. They suspended the first search, and Gruber subsequently accepted a position in April with Hilton Head. So then you'll see the next email, which I believe is in July. Am I correct? The next one you have to put up?
There
should be another one.
Before we hit that one, let me just say a couple of things about this. What's interesting that and people that are watching this need to understand is there are several things at play here. One is that we have county business being conducted on private emails. That's the first problem. The second problem is we have these mini MINI governments that Stu Rodman has been reported on having been a part of for years. You didn't make this up. This is well documented. This is not we're not out to get him. It is what it is, and this is an example of it. It's also interesting that Stu Rodman in his assessment of the plan, and it is very conspiratory. In his assessment of the plan, he's building this drama to a crescendo of where everybody folds under the pressure and does exactly what he and Paul and Jerry want.
Right. This is the shadow.
What's also interesting is that at the second go around, after we decided that this was a tainted process and we're going to do this again, it's going to cost more money, whatever. At the very end, matter of fact, like where I was right before where I told Rodman that he sucked as a chairman. This same playbill was before us on Hilton Head that night, where we had the sheriff, we had the TCL president, the delegation, the mayor. It was a bunch of mayors there. All these people that his plan, and correct me if I'm wrong, his plan was to promote such a political barrage that other politicians, and I think specifically myself in York, because we were last, would have so much pressure that we would have to go along with them. Is that
Like I
fair?
said, this is the shadow council that I and others have been sounding the alarm about. Is that you have the shadow council that's creating the scenario that they want to see happen through their private communications, and of course, they use their phones and all that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But they were using their private emails quite a bit, laying out their plans. And so by the time it got to the public meeting,
Mm-hmm.
whatever was being decided was simply just a surface conversation, because the real plan was already ready to be executed. And not just for this, as you'll see with some other emails I provided. Oh, no, not that one yet.
Not that one.
Back to the July 2018 email. No, you can go back from that. That's after. There should be one.
Something happened. I did not. Well, let's see here. Bear with me. The
If
technology.
not, I could read one out loud to you. And don't worry. There's always another method. Old school method.
This is
You should have
this
one
is the one that wouldn't download.
Okay. Well, everyone just said that we all know that it exists. We have another email here. This is dated July 18th. And this one is from Stu Rodman to Paul Somerville, Jerry Stewart, and Alice Howard. Copy to Tom Keaveney, the county attorney. And it's entitled Search. And it starts with all. My strategy for your consideration. Starting assumptions. 1, 10 members present. 2, and then he goes to he's saying the initials of some of the candidates who had actually applied for the position. And he uses their initials. He says AO is the preferred candidate by the dissenters. WS is weak and is highly unlikely he would be inadvertently hired.
Mm-hmm.
Action number 1, Stu motions, and then in parentheses, explaining that my intent is to disqualify him, that WS be hired, such that 6 votes would be required to hire him. Expected outcome. WS is disqualified with perhaps only 2 or 3 members voting to hire him. And I'm going to stop here for a second and just say, I would imagine if you put your own initials in there, okay, you're somebody who is applying for a position in good faith that's been advertised. You maybe have told your current position that you're looking at something else, so you're kind of putting yourself out there, or you're spending money and time to interview and meet and greet and do all this other stuff. Yep. And you have 5 people involved in the process of working so hard to disqualify you. I mean, to me, it's just unbelievable. Then he says, I reject starting with hiring JG. I think we all know JG being Josh Gruber, as the likely outcome with anything less than 6 confirmed votes is that JG is disqualified, a position that would be difficult to reverse. Action number 2, Stu observes, laying out my previous arguments that JG is a candidate and having the parliamentarian confirm such. And they hired our money, a parliamentarian to goose this along. Okay.
Yep.
That JG is a candidate, which might invite a contrary motion with one of 2 outcomes, namely, number 1, chair and the parliamentarian rule it out of order, or 2, if voted on, it fails for the lack of 6 votes. At that point, we would have 2 candidates, JG and OS. While a forced vote might elect one or the other, the more likely outcome is that both candidates go down 5-5 with hurt feelings. Action 3, Jerry motions to go into executive session and see if we can resolve this somewhat Mexican standoff. It might be well received by the dissenters, not feeling they lost on parliamentary maneuvering. We might agree that we unanimously support the candidate with 6 votes. Action number 4, reconvene in public session taking one of 2 actions. Unanimously support hiring the 6-vote candidate, or number 2, let it get messy. Let's discuss. Cheers, Stu. Now,
So you
again,
know what's
I read
interesting
this
about this
totally
is
verbatim
yeah,
from Stu's email. You have a copy of it, Mike. So you know you've read it.
and
That's
reliving that. I mean, I remember this is a playbill like you would see on Broadway.
right.
What
Exactly.
people that are watching this really need, you know, as you keep going, I want people to understand not only is or was and is Stu Rodman and Somerville and at that time Jerry Stewart, are they perverting the process of hiring a new county administrator? This was going on in other areas.
Other areas.
Other areas. So
Areas.
you
Right.
folks that are watching, that are, whether you're a Beaufort County resident or wherever you live, you should be, well, if you live here, you should be really pissed off because this is going on weekly. Weekly. Now
And don't forget,
the
well,
OS and the whatever. I remember them both. One gentleman
right.
was from Brunswick and one was from York, Rock Hill.
Something like that. Yeah. Correct.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we ended up deciding on one of them, and the guy, either somebody let it out or he was smart enough to tune in, but he said,
Said,
I
no,
don't want your
I don't
job.
want to be a part of it. Well,
I
so
don't
I
want
was
your
going to
job.
say our entire government, okay, aside from the statutes and laws that, we have in our code for civil and criminal conduct and punishment therein, our government really depends on good people taking their oath and upholding their oath. And that means doing the right thing for the right reasons and being good public servants. Obviously, this kind of behavior falls in a completely different basket of people who are just acting in what, to me, in ways that are just so contrary to their oath of office and to just good character, good moral character. Um,
Hmm.
so, in any event, then we get to for the audience's knowledge, in case people listening don't know, that their employees ultimately were not successful because the vote was consistently 6-5 against their preferred candidate. By that point, anyway, Gruber wasn't even a candidate. He'd already given his
That's right.
notice. He wasn't even, on the docket for the position. And then, of course, we know what happened after that, Mike. The contract,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
payoff for the contract that got awarded to the very disappointed departing employee.
Right.
But he did ultimately get fined by the Ethics Commission for that
Yeah.
contract.
And what was that may be a good, that may be good for another show to talk about
Yeah,
that, but because I really want to concentrate on these emails,
right, right. But I
and
mean,
just
just so that people
how
know that there was some
corrupt.
punishment that was meted out eventually, not as much
Yeah,
as people wanted. Yes.
right. And
So,
that
do you have
punishment was dollars, right?
dollars and humiliation?
Yeah.
A worthy 2-1-2 punch. Um, so okay, nope, that's not. We're not there yet.
Nope,
We have one more
not there
email.
yet.
One more
How about
email
that one?
from. Nope, it's an email from September 25th.
I
If
don't
you
have
don't
that
have
one
it,
either.
I have it right
The
here.
storms.
This was the last shot, Stu's last
Okay.
stand on this county administrator issue. This is from 9/25/2018, and some of these emails are part of my FOIA lawsuit. So, if you want to go and read all
Mhm.
of the emails, you can go to the South Carolina judicial website and just put in my name, Mayor Baracco, and the case will come up, and you can look at the record. It has all the emails. Um, this is
Now, is
from
that case still ongoing, or is that over?
it's before the Court of Appeals right now
Okay.
because
All right. Because I didn't want to say anything that, since if it's still
hasn't
going on.
we don't have resolution on some of these issues, so
Okay.
we're letting the
All
higher
right.
court decide it. We have to sometimes
Gotcha.
take things out of the county to get it heard by
Yeah.
some different folk. So this is from
Right.
Stu Rodman to Paul Somerville and Jerry Stewart, blind copied to the county attorney, entitled Subject Administrator. And Stu writes, Paul and Jerry, observations. problems or opportunities. 2, the right solution is Josh, the county, and his career. 3, he will come for say 225,000 with the town's blessing, and the gang of 6 can be broken. 4, Jerry and I are both capable of running the county. I would support Jerry if he wanted it. I would only do it as a last resort. And we both have baggage with some members. That will probably be Mike, an understatement at that point, I think.
You think?
5, we need to work this through the executive committee where we have 4 of 6 votes, where GD will probably come along giving us 5, and BF is the most likely of the gang of 6 to break ranks, giving us 6 of 6. The best short-term solution is Gary, who can orchestrate bringing Josh back and is a master with the press and the public. I had to put my own little flair on that one.
Yeah.
Recommendation.
Folks, we're not making this up either. She's
no,
not
I'm
making
reading
this
this verbatim.
This is real. This is
Recommendation. Real. A meeting of the 3 of us with Gary and Tom to set a strategy for bringing Josh back. Cheers. That's Stu's little closer.
Yeah,
Cheers.
Yeah.
So again, and that's online at the Court of Appeals. It's one of our exhibits. So it's
again, these backroom government dealings happening on private email servers. And if you don't play along, they were trying to find ways to shut you up and make you sit down and do what they say. And what's the old saying?
Take 1 second. I'm going to pull one more document. Would you give me a second?
Sure.
Talk to the audience.
Absolutely. We are here at Beaufort County's House of Cards. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Special guest, Mayor Barranco. We're talking about Beaufort County Council and using personal emails to conduct county business. This is not how your tax dollars are to be spent, yet there is a group that, fortunately, 2 of them are just months away from being retired.
Months away, people. We're going to have a countdown party on Beaufort County's House of Cards when we can actually like bang a gong when
there you go.
Sue and Paul's terms have finally ended. I think they thought they were going to be on county council forever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Never, ever leave.
Yeah.
So the other set of emails that are very interesting, because this also occurred when you were on council, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think anybody on the committee you were a part of had any idea this was going on, right? With the contract, the lobbying contract?
No, nobody knew. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So if you want to put the emails up from this, I think you had some of them you were able to post.
Okay. Let's see. Go to this one first.
No, the emails, actually. I can just give you a Reader's Digest version of, nope, those are the contracts. Nope.
Oh, that's all I have. Those 2 is all I have left. All
right. Well, a long story short, a little Reader's Digest version. Okay. There was a lobbying contract. It was a $52,000 and change lobbying contract that came up again. And this was back in January of 2019. And the acting county administrator at the time, John Weaver, had told us that he, in his determination, he was the county administrator, acting county administrator. He didn't want to renew it. That was the end of the story. Until that dazzling duo of Stu and Paul overrode his decision just on their own. And they said on 1/23/2019, there was a conversation actually between Rodman and Weaver, where Weaver comes and says, back in the game. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Prior to that, the day prior, he said, my decision to not renew your lobbying contract for 2019 has been overridden. Please submit to me your earliest convenience a contract. Thanks, John Weaver. And then he replies the next day to Stu Rodman and Paul Somerville. He says, back in the game, I'll sign the contract and pay the invoice. You decide how you want Lynn to keep the council updated on the firm's activities. First time we've seen council mentioned in any of this, right? And then John Weaver communicates to the client, I was told to put us back in the game. The ticket price is $50,000 plus. I have no authority for that amount. So to stop that for a second, you might recall, Mike, that there was a very contentious issue at council that somehow the county administrator had this mysterious power to spend up to $50,000. That would be $49,999 whenever they wanted to at any time, and never had to tell you guys about it.
That was what that's what they thought.
What does that mean exactly? Does that mean that they could do it every day? No, I mean, it's absolutely insane. It was a misreading of the ordinance. It's absolutely not intended to do that. So he is saying in these emails, I don't have the authority to go over $49,999, this mysterious under $50,000 discretionary amount. So then Somerville says, my recollection is this contract is a 50-50 split. I have a call in to, and he mentions a few names. If I'm correct, this shall update and solve the problem. We can move forward before TCL is caught in the dead zone. And then Stu pipes in to Somerville and Weaver. It is also my recollection that's 50-50, and if so, it will be within John's authority. And I don't know where they're even coming up with any of this on their own. They're one vote out of 11. Each of them has one vote out of 11. So if you recall, y'all had a meeting, a committee meeting, and do you remember when that was?
I remember, but no, I don't know. I don't remember when it was, but I do remember it. But
June 28th, 2019, it was a committee meeting that Paul was helming. And at the 1 hour, 12-minute mark, for anybody that wants to go in online and view that meeting, I sent you the link, by the way, Mike, to that meeting. Somerville introduces this topic of this consulting contract as though it was something that you just heard about. And he's opining about how important it is and what does everybody think, even though, of course, it was already decided. Okay. So now we have the acting county administrator chimes in that he has a contract in the amount of, you should see it highlighted on your contract, in the amount of $48,500. Okay. But if you'll see on the screen, if you go back to that first page, Mike, the original agreement was $52,500. And remember, they had no authority to sign that. And if you look at the top, John Weaver's address is Beaufort County Administrator and Beaufort County Council. Do you see what address that is?
That would be Stu Rodman's home address.
That would be Stu Rodman's home address, 27 Baynard Park Road in Hilton Head.
When did they move the county building?
Yeah, apparently the county council and the county administrator position all runs out of Stu's house. Okay.
Amazing.
So anyway, they're like, uh-oh, we can't have the contract for $52,500 because nobody saw this one, by the way. They saw the next one, the updated contract, which voila, I don't know if you have it on your screen, but there's a second contract for $48,500 that also made out to 27 Baynard Park Road.
Is that this one?
Okay. That would be, that's it. There you are.
There we go. Let's
and magically, as though somebody waved a magic wand.
So now how many days apart were these?
January 23rd. Actually, the same day.
The same day.
The same, dated the same day. Can you imagine?
And they had a $4,000 oops.
Well, no, they just changed it to.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They just.
Well, it sounds good. Oh, well, 52.5, 48. I mean, it's not. so many of the aspects of this aren't even to me real. But it's such an obvious and really apt example of the shadow council. None of you on council um, were told that there were any emails, that anybody had conversations about it, that it was already decided, that Stu and
No.
Paul.
Yeah,
Uh,
nobody in full council. Now, I am
oh,
quite confident that their little, their little Baynard Park Cove or whatever it's called
right.
council. I'm sure they all knew about
Their
it.
Boehner go our
Yeah.
council. That's pretty good. Yeah. So again, I probably have in our archives here, I want to say maybe 10 or 12,000 emails. I mean, there's just a
Mm.
huge volume of emails. The other part of our FOIA case is not just
Mhm.
these private emails, but there was also, as you know, a land purchase by Josh Gruber that the county ultimately determined was unauthorized. And when I did a FOIA for those emails, they were all blacked out. And so we're like, well, if the
And which
transaction,
parcel of land was that?
pardon me,
Which parcel of land was that?
Bostic Circle.
Number one, Bostic Circles. And folks,
Bostic Circle.
if you
Right.
joined us last week, we talked about that
Oh,
with
yes, DSN home.
the DSN house and the exploitation, et cetera. So it's funny how all this is really doing this.
Right. The purchase of that parcel, I'm I'm not going to put this out here as fact, but it is persuasive. That particular purchase was more of done out of spite because one of the council members lives in the neighborhood, a council member who was not
Yeah.
a fan of promoting Mr. Gruber. And so it
Right.
was suggested that the purchase was actually done in that neighborhood to be spiteful.
Yeah.
And knowing some of the personalities makes sense. But
Yeah.
ultimately, the county determined the purchase was unauthorized. Okay. So if the purchase was unauthorized, why are all the documents blacked out? Number one, it's a concluded contract. So under the statute, it's not subject to redaction anymore because it's not negotiation. And it was not proper to begin with, according to the county's own legal counsel. It was unauthorized. So why can't we see the emails and other documents that are associated with that transaction? The county has even gone so far as to say the realtor is a privileged party.
Yeah, well, since where is their realtor client privilege?
Well, not only
In
that, but
public
her
spending.
agreement with the county says she doesn't work for the county. I mean, it's just they are taking absolutely. And the sad
Yeah.
thing is that the money that's being spent
Yeah.
on this fight for documents we should be able to see and should freely be able to read, because
Right.
even though they're embarrassing, this is what happened. We should be able to see it. They're wasting tens of thousands of dollars on legal fees, fighting this to the bitter end. And this is our money. There
Let
are
me ask
documents
you.
and our money.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Nope,
Let me
I'm
ask
just,
you, as someone who's, I mean, you know more about this than the majority of people. I mean, there's without question. In your guess, your professional opinion, in an average year up till now, obviously,
right.
over the last decade, how much money a year does Beaufort County government waste? How much of our money do they waste on frivolous lawsuits and frivolous um, spending, drunken sailor spending, if you will?
That's a funny question because I don't know that it's calculable. I mean, there is a number, but you have ridiculous spending like this discretionary money baloney. Okay.
Mhm.
And then you have the legal shenanigans where, they basically dare people to sue them because they have an endless pot of money.
Mhm.
Some of it, your money.
Yeah.
They're saying, well, we're going to use our money, our endless pot of money, which includes your money. And then you're going to have to use your money to sue
That's
us. So
right.
you're paying twice, you know.
Yep.
So we have all these ridiculous cases that should actually be worked out through some kind of, compromise and people
Hmm.
sitting down and being able to discuss it. And then you have the time it takes to, it's not just the legal fees, right? It's all the employees whose hands touch every part of this, like somebody having to make copies of FOIAs and then redact them, or
Yeah.
somebody having to go to the post office and mail legal filings and unnecessary stuff and whatnot. So,
Hmm.
all of that really adds up. And when you think about how the money could be used to improve our community,
Hmm.
and also how the opinion of our local government would be elevated.
Oh,
you know,
well, that's.
because when you read, people tend to tune out, which I get it. You see
Hmm.
this and you go, my God, why should I even bother voting? It's the same thing over and over again. They always just sneak around and, you
Right.
know, do things that are selfish, or, things that aren't in my interest. And so it makes people, this kind of corruption is what I'm talking about. It makes people feel very disconnected, and it
Hmm.
makes them feel very mistrustful, and it's very corrosive. So while we laugh at this Stu Paul show, because their behavior is so unconscionable, um, the corrosive nature of it is really extremely serious. Um,
Oh, it's very serious.
right.
It's very serious, and it takes folks like you. It takes venues such as this, even it's in very infancy.
Mm,
Other venues like this, other groups getting involved, and simply saying, "We're not doing this anymore.
right.
We are holding your feet to the fire.
Mm,
No more.
right.
No more."
Well, and we have one option, and truly is at the ballot box.
Right.
That's how you change culture,
Hmm.
government culture. That's how you change the way
Yep.
business is done. When people turn out, they don't disconnect. They turn out and they say, okay, we want to get people in there that we think are really going to be public servants and are going to serve us. And,
Hmm.
I have no doubt that, and believe me, I've seen, these folk we're talking about tonight, I've seen them out here and there. And of course, we all know who you are. And I'm not saying they're, terrible people or anything like that, but government is a serious business, and it takes serious people that really want to do what the oath demands of them. And
Hmm.
it calls upon our character. If we want to be a good public servant, we have to remember that we are serving the public and not ourselves.
I couldn't have said that any better myself. One of
So
the
I
things I
often
used to,
comment, but that's really how I
yeah.
feel about it. And I think
Have
this
you?
show is amazing that having
Oh,
people come on,
yeah.
because I could talk about DSN over 3 or 4 shows with you.
There you go. Well, we'll probably have you back at some time, but uh, and I'm not putting you on the spot or anything, but I tell you, with the way you understand the process,
Hmm.
the way that you understand that uh, county council, town council, county commission, whatever, is, as I always advertise, as this is the voice of the people to the government, not the voice of the government to the people.
Hmm.
Have you ever thought about jumping in this game?
Yes, I have actually. I'm actually considering it for a local seat. I'm thinking about running as a write-in candidate against Alice Howard. It's something
Well,
I'm thinking about. So
I know you got
sharing
a
that
lot
with
to think
you and
about
your
with
millions of people that watch this show tonight. I
that.
haven't
But
made a
I
decision yet. There's
yeah,
some other things I have to kind of
sure.
figure out, but it's
Yeah,
something
and
I'm definitely interested in doing, because I think we could have better representation for that
yeah.
district than what
And
we have
and
now.
don't take me wrong, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I
That's right.
think it's important that people understand, and I have said this multiple times, that if you are in this business as someone who wants to be the voice of the government to the constituent, you're going about it entirely the wrong way. And that, I feel, is something that you know, we're talking about Stu Rodman and Paul Somerville. That's how they are behaving. They may not think that, but that is how they are behaving,
Mhm.
and we can't have that. We just can't have that. So you're right. It's solved at the ballot box, and
Right.
sometimes we don't get it right.
Right.
Sometimes we don't get it, and you got to do it again. You just got to
You
do
got
it
to do
again.
it again. You have to do it until it's kind of interesting. I'm on uh, if you know this, but I'm play billiards. I'm on a billiard league, and we have a really
Uh-oh.
good team.
We
No,
have a shark in our
no,
existence here.
I would not refer to myself that way, but it's something I enjoy doing, and I'm on a billiard league, and we have this really great team. So
Yeah.
shout out to my team,
There you go.
and it's you coalesce. You know what I mean? You get
Yeah.
to know one another. You work together. You create a team. I don't know that I've ever seen that on county council. And to be honest, I haven't seen it really in any council around here. But since we're
Yeah.
talking about county council, there were like just factions, like the faction we talk about here,
Yeah.
and then other factions, and um, not as a team saying, what can we, 11 people, how can we 11 people move this county forward? And that's not to discount some of the folk who were on council, like Rick
Hmm.
Caparel and Cynthia Bench and
Yeah.
Steve
Yeah.
Fobbs and Brian Flewelling and Chris Herbishon. I mean, these are good people, good public servants. And if I've left anybody out, I apologize. But I mean, I know it's hard to act as a team when you've got this shadow council going on. And I don't know how you get rid of a shadow council unless you're doing it at the ballot box. I don't know how
Well,
you punish members who act this way.
you have to do it at the ballot box, and you have to be willing to, speak up as a sitting member. That's
Mhm.
probably the hardest thing I ever did, was coming out of the executive session that was completely illegal.
Right.
And when they ramrodded Administrator Ashley Jacobs, and I
Mhm.
broke decorum and made that public. So that was probably one of the
You're
hardest
allowed
things I
to
ever
do
did.
that. No, you're actually allowed to discuss something in executive session if you believe, or if it, as I understand it, as something that is not is untoward or shouldn't have been done. You are allowed to discuss it.
Oh, absolutely. But there's a I don't want to call it a code, but it's an
I know it's a
unwritten,
prohibition
you know,
of
yeah. And
right,
that was hard. It was
right,
hard, yet it was the easiest thing I did because it was the right thing. And
right.
it takes people that are willing to do that, um, to do what you're doing, and moving this county forward. So I greatly appreciate you being on here,
This is fun.
Mayor
I go
Baraco,
come out
ladies
of
and
my
gentlemen.
lair, ask people. I this is a rare appearance. I don't have social media.
Right.
I
Well,
don't even have a Facebook page.
gonna have
You
to,
know,
if you get on, your next thing, wherever that is, whatever that is, you
but
gotta
I was
you
excited
gotta be accessible.
to talk to you tonight. Was a privilege and an honor,
Well,
and
it's
I'm
all
glad
my
we had this back and forth. And I hope we've enlightened your audience as to some
oh
of the shenanigans that
yeah.
haven't
Well,
continued to go on here.
thank you so much, and it was
You,
a
sir.
pleasure to having you on here. We look forward to having you come back again.
I
All
would love
right.
to.
All righty.
Thank you, and
All
have a
right.
good night. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. So there you have it. There you have it. And I really appreciate Mayor coming on here, talking about these things called email, that many folks would think that's just an email. I mean, how often during the day do we think of email as being, um, really something that's subliminal, or second nature, if you will? Um, it's just something that you do. Well, that while that's true, email has a has a repercussion, and it has to be used wisely. Again, I'm no saint. I had used personal email for county business. It was an accident. I don't know any council person that hasn't done that. However, I never conducted business via personal email um, on a daily basis. So, and we'll speak more about that. We do have a question here, and please, we got about 9 minutes or so left. Please come on, let me know your questions. We'll put you on the screen. Julianne Kobrick, please explain how there can be a write-in candidate with the type of ballot marking devices and scanners being used. So, Julianne, that is a fantastic question. Probably one that we could go into. Well, we will go into it because it's a big deal right now. Is the ballot harvesting, these machines that we use in South Carolina that up until this election, I knew there was something kind of cattywampus, but I wasn't sold 100% because I'm a visual kind of guy. I got to see it, touch it, smell it, feel it, that kind of thing. Well, this year that happened. I wasn't on the ballot. My own ballot. I wasn't on there. I saw with my own two eyes machines that hadn't been certified or that were certified 3 years ago, not current. I saw with my own eyes Wi-Fi signals of the machines being active. I saw that. I know the machines are as fixed and as corrupted as they can be. I know that for a fact. I saw it. It's not a conspiracy. I saw it. So, we'll go into that later. You can tell I get pretty upset about it. But Julian, your question: how can there be one? Well, there can be one because that's the rules. That our law provides for the ability of having write-in candidates. How does that work? I'm not an election official by any stretch. Don't pretend to be. But if you go to scvotes.org, there's a full litany of how the write-in process works. You can also go to the Beaufort County government page, and it's very cumbersome, but mire down into Board of Elections, and you'll find the same thing on the county level. But this is a state this is a state issue, so they have to make it possible. So you know, one of the things that's not possible with write-in elections is, like myself, or in mayor's district, Josh Scalati ran as a Republican. We sign some people will call it a contract. We sign a document that says, and the Democratic Party does it too. If you don't win, you will not run as a write-in. Okay, so that's the only thing I can tell you that is bar none. You either run in as a party candidate or as a write-in. If you don't run as a party candidate, you don't have to go through the primary process. You wait till that's done. It's done, and you start writing. You write yourself in to the Board of Elections. Maybe I'll do a whole, probably not a whole show, but a half a show on talking about that process. Um, the most important thing with write-in candidates is that they get themselves and their name out there with their constituents. This is why it's so important, no matter what your party, and it doesn't matter, but you have to know the precincts in this example, council district. If you have a district, okay, inside of the district, you have precincts. This is where it really matters. You need to know your precincts and who runs those precincts, and you need to get to them and get your word out. Hey, I am Joe Blow, and I'm going to run as a write-in for this seat, XYZ. That's how that works. So there's a lot of legwork. There's a lot of legwork. Write-in candidates don't have the luxury of having a party to push them or promote them. That's not how it works. So is it a stretch? Absolutely. Is it impossible? Not at all, especially if you are, whatever the seat is, has any kind of controversy or mired in corruption, like we've just been talking about, or you just plain terrible representation. Then it becomes not that hard of a deal to knock off somebody in a party. Um, so we'll see what happens with that. We have somebody else coming in, Helen Lee. I've been told write-in candidate ballots are hand counted and don't go through the machines, but don't quote me on that. I'm not going to quote you on that, Helen. And I cannot answer that. I cannot answer that. I do not know, but you have piqued my interest. Personally, I want to see us get away from these machines. Period. I had said, somebody, I made a comment. I said, something about how did it come up? Something about um, paper ballots, and paper ballots. Even though there were some problems, there wasn't these kind of problems. That's for sure. So I don't like the machines. I don't like them at all. We need to do something better. And as much as I am against, the things that come out of very strict Islamic based countries, they do it with the purple ink on your thumb. That ain't a bad idea when you think about it. That's how they know you voted, you didn't vote, by the ink on your thumb. And I use that very superficial, but we have a problem. We have a problem with corruptions in voting in South Carolina. We have it across the country. I am very, very concerned with what's happening here in South Carolina. And again, let me reiterate this. I I wasn't as concerned because I didn't feel it last year or the year before or the year before. I mean, I heard about it, and I'm not under the rock. I understand, and I've been doing some of my own research. But when I felt it, when I saw it with my own two eyes, when I heard from my colleague Shelley West running in District 9 that she had people who told her, "You weren't on my ballot." I have absolutely no hesitation in saying these machines are bad. They're very bad. The process right now is very bad, and we need to fix this. We need to fix it quick. This can't continue to go on. We'll run in more about that as time goes on here on the show. We'll probably have another show about that. We are coming up on the bottom of the hour. Again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to try to put this music back on here while we're sending it off here on Beaufort County's House of Cards. Don't forget to join us every Thursday night from 7 o'clock until 8:30, somewhere in that neighborhood. We're always going to be here. We're starting to do shows during the week. Those are going to be taped and they'll be posted so you can tune into them at your leisure. So don't forget, head on over to Patreon. That's www.patreon.com/Beaufort House of Cards. Join us, get a membership, get into more stuff. We're going to have merchandise and all kind of stuff in the future. You can still catch us broadcasting live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitch. When you go to YouTube, especially go to YouTube, click on the subscribe button, ring that little bell so you'll be notified. Tell your friends, have them come over, listen to what we've got going on. We're going to have more people on here talking about the truth, talking about why is Beaufort County mired in controversy day after day after day. Thank you all for being here. My name is Mike Covert with Beaufort County's House of Cards, Mystery, Mayhem, and Manipulation. We'll see you next week.